Hey everyone, ready to nail that acupuncturist interview.
We're diving deep into RoleCatcher's resources to get you prepped.
They've got these awesome sample questions plus insights, and we'll get into how their AI can help you really stand out.
Yeah, it's like having a personalized strategy session.
Okay, so first up, can
Yeah.
you walk me through your experience with traditional Chinese medicine?
This is where you get to tell your story. Don't just list off your qualifications.
Right, like what drew you to it in the first place?
Exactly. Was it a personal experience? Or maybe a specific principle that really clicked with you?
Those personal touches make you memorable, right?
Definitely. It helps the interviewer actually connect with you and not just your resume. Okay, moving on. How do you determine a patient's treatment plan?
Ugh, this one feels like it needs specifics. Like, could you give me an example for, say, chronic pain versus stress?
Sure, for chronic pain, you might talk about incorporating cupping or gua sha. While for stress, you might lean more into acupressure points, relaxation techniques.
It's showing you can tailor the approach, not just a one-size-fits-all.
Right, exactly. Adaptability is key.
Okay, how about this? How do you stay up to date with the latest developments in acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine? I'd probably just say reading journals, but I bet there's more.
Journals are good, but think about online forums, maybe specific podcasts you follow.
Oh, or like a recent conference where you learned a new technique.
Yeah, it shows you're engaged, not just keeping up with the bare minimum.
I like it. Makes you seem more, I don't know, enthusiastic, right?
Exactly. Passionate.
Okay, this one seems kind of tough. How do you approach treating patients with complex medical histories or multiple health concerns?
This is all about collaboration. You want to highlight that. So, mention gathering info from medical records, maybe consulting with their primary care physician.
It shows you're taking a holistic view, not just focused on the acupuncture itself.
Yeah, it's about patient safety too. You're part of a healthcare team.
Okay, makes sense. Now this one. How do you ensure that your practice is in compliance with all relevant regulations and ethical guidelines?
Don't just rattle off a list of rules. Talk about your process for staying updated.
Like, how do you make sure you're following the latest guidelines?
Exactly. And patient confidentiality, things like that. Show you've got a system.
Makes them feel confident in you. All right, this one seems a little lighter. How do you ensure that your patients feel comfortable and informed throughout their treatment?
It's about communication, making sure they understand each step.
Right, because needles aren't exactly everyone's favorite thing.
And creating a calming atmosphere, addressing any concerns they have.
Empathy, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, what about how do you handle a patient who is resistant to acupuncture or has a fear of needles? I feel like you need a game plan for that one.
Active listening is huge here. Validate their feelings. Don't just dismiss them.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then you can discuss alternatives.
Like what if they really don't want needles?
Acupressure, maybe cupping, things like that. Shows you're flexible.
Nice. This one feels different. Can you discuss a challenging case you have worked on and how you approached it?
Pick a case that lets you show off your problem-solving skills, your clinical reasoning.
It's not just about it being hard, but what you learned from it.
Right.
So maybe a patient with an uncommon condition.
Yeah, something that made you really think, maybe do extra research, collaborate with other practitioners.
Shows you can handle tough situations.
Yeah.
Okay, this one's important. How do you manage patient expectations regarding the effectiveness of acupuncture? Because you're not a miracle worker, right?
Exactly. You have to be upfront about that.
But also highlight the benefits.
Yes, but realistically, explain that results can vary. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Transparency is key.
It builds trust.
Okay, last one for this section. How would you describe your approach to working with energy meridians and acupoints? That might sound a bit intimidating to someone new to traditional Chinese medicine.
You have to find that balance, honoring the tradition, but explaining it in an approachable way.
So how would you explain it?
I might say that energy meridians are like pathways in the body, and stimulating specific points on those pathways, the acupoints, can help restore balance, promote healing.
Okay, that makes it seem less mysterious.
And then you can talk about your personal approach, maybe a specific lineage you follow or an aspect of the theory that resonates with you.
So it gets personal too.
Exactly. Makes you more memorable.
Right, it's like telling your acupuncture story.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher also talks about showcasing your expertise, not just your credentials.
Oh, like offering workshops or doing presentations.
Exactly. It's a great way to share your knowledge, build your network.
And shows you take initiative, right? Always a good thing in an interview.
Absolutely. Now, going back to the interview for a sec, remember that question about staying up to date? That's a perfect spot to mention your interest in acupuncture technology.
Oh, that's smart. Instead of just journals, talk about like advancements in electroacupuncture, laser acupuncture.
Precisely. Shows you're interested in the future of the field, not just the traditional stuff.
It's like saying, hey, I'm on top of things. Okay, we've covered a lot on these questions, but RoleCatcher also gets into different career stages for acupuncturists.
Right, they talk about what you might expect as you move from entry level to more experienced.
They even have this sample profile of a mid-level acupuncturist. I thought that was interesting.
Gives you a sense of where your career could go. Speaking of which, have you thought about using RoleCatcher's AI to fine-tune your answers for specific jobs?
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite things. You just paste the job description in, and it'll analyze your answers, see if you're hitting the right keywords, highlighting the skills they want.
It's super helpful for tailoring your responses, making sure you're putting your best foot forward.
It's like having a personal editor for your interview prep. Okay, before we move on, there was one more thing from RoleCatcher's guide I wanted to mention, building a professional network.
So important in this field, especially when you're building up your client base.
And they had some good tips, attending conferences, joining organizations,
Even using social media to connect with other practitioners.
putting yourself out there.
Exactly. Now, speaking of putting yourself out there, let's go back to that question about handling patients who are resistant to acupuncture.
Yeah, that can be tricky.
It is. And while we talked about offering alternatives like acupressure or cupping, it's also really important to show you can educate those patients, address their concerns with empathy.
Taking the time to listen to their fears, explain things in a way that makes them feel safe.
Exactly. You're treating a person, not just a condition.
Right. Building that trust is so important.
Absolutely. Now, before we get to our final thoughts, I wanted to touch on something we discussed earlier. The evolving world of acupuncture, the role of technology.
Right. And how to bring that up in the interview.
Do you have any thoughts on how to do that naturally?
Maybe when they ask about a challenging case, you could mention using electroacupuncture for pain relief or laser acupuncture if a patient was afraid of needles.
That's a great example. Weaving it into your answer.
Shows you're thinking outside the box.
Exactly. And that you're committed to giving your patients the best treatment options.
Okay, love it. Now, one last question before we move on. We talk about managing patient expectations, but sometimes people come in expecting miracles.
That's true. You can't promise to fix everything.
So how do you handle that?
You have to be realistic. Emphasize that it's a collaboration. Results vary.
Open communication is key,
Absolutely. Working together, setting realistic goals.
and often educating them about acupuncture in general.
Exactly. Giving them the information to make informed choices about their health.
And that's what RoleCatcher does too, right? It gives you the tools to navigate this whole job search process.
I agree. From those personalized answers to career path insights, they've got you covered.
Like a career mentor and a cheerleader all in one.
I like that. And speaking of mentors, RoleCatcher also talks about the importance of finding mentors, building that professional network,
They even link to some relevant organizations, which is super helpful.
connecting with others in your field, sharing knowledge, supporting each other's growth. It all matters.
And that's what this whole deep dive is about, giving you the tools and confidence to succeed.
It's about more than just the interview, though, right?
Totally. It's like,
Mm.
this is just the beginning. Then it's all about learning, growing, and keeping up with this amazing field.
Exactly. And speaking of keeping up, I'm really fascinated by how technology is playing a bigger role in acupuncture these days. Like laser acupuncture and electroacupuncture, it's pretty cool.
It's like taking this ancient practice and making it totally cutting edge. I mean, imagine being able to help someone who's terrified of needles with laser acupuncture. That's incredible.
Right. You can reach so many more people. And for those who are okay with needles, electroacupuncture can be a real game changer, especially for pain.
It's like a supercharged version of the traditional techniques.
Exactly. And remember, talking about these things in your interview, it shows you're thinking ahead, not stuck in the past.
Right. It's like saying, I'm into the future of acupuncture too.
Exactly. That kind of energy can make you really stand out. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into these interview questions, any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are getting ready for their interviews?
Yeah. What's the one thing you'd want them to remember when they walk into that room?
You've got this. You're passionate about this medicine, about helping people. Let that passion show. Be confident, be yourself, and trust in what you know.
Love it. And don't forget, RoleCatcher is in your corner, ready to help you every step of the way. Their resources, those AI tools, can give you a real advantage.
Absolutely. Being prepared is so important, and RoleCatcher gives you the tools to prepare well and feel confident going in.
Like having a career coach and your own personal hype squad, all in one.
I like that.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this episode of the Deep Dive. We hope this deep dive into RoleCatcher's resources for aspiring acupuncturists has helped you feel more prepared and confident. Don't forget to check out RoleCatcher for yourself. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, happy job hunting.